Okay, so before I move into this concept, I'll talk a little bit about me, just to give a context as to why I find this interesting. So, born in Chatham, well, born in London, grew up in Chatham, not the most amazing, inspiring place, unfortunately. Then went to university, studied maths, but got heavily involved in lots of non-academic things like music, DJing, got involved in various marketing projects. And I think I kind of got half of my interests were from study, half of it was from non-study. Work, I started at Procter & Gamble. I did 1 year, it definitely wasn't right for me, big companies didn't really suit. Moved into Making Waves, where we managed events for brands involved in music, and then ended up at Raisy Lee, a creative agency. And I feel like I found my home. I've been there for about 12 years. About 4 years ago, moved to Frome. Got an awesome family here. Feel really at home, DJing again, 45s, small records. Setting up a campsite and generally time poor. So it's generally a theme throughout my life that I just do too much, get involved in too many things, think too much. And here's like a really whistle stop of the themes of my life, I guess, in a way. So to start with maths, then music, creativity, business, family, and then of recent years getting heavily interested in values. So the main topic is commercialising creativity without selling out. So what does that really mean? So commercial, I mean, it has certain negative connotations. I think there's various ways to interpret it, but very simply it means making money, which I think we're all allowed to do to some extent. Creativity, easy to understand, hard to explain, easy to do, hard to master. It's the field that I operate in. It's a confusing one for sure. And then selling out. So in looking into this, because I'm quite interested in this topic, but when you research, it's really hard to find a succinct explanation of what this means. And I think that goes some way to explain the subjectivity that goes into this. But it's a phrase that's used a lot and has been used for various people in the past to essentially mean something negative. But basically it's about moving away from your values, moving away from your integrity for money. And why do I find this interesting? I think that if you don't uphold your values in your commercial work, then I think it can lead to you being unhappy. It heavily affects your image, which is really important in most fields, and then as a result can have a direct impact on business. And when I say business, that's a very general term, whether you're a solo person, a company, or a music artist. It's also really difficult. I think that's one of the things that I find interesting about it, is it's really difficult. You're having to try to measure money against values. Values doesn't really have a metric per se, but money does. How can you equate which is the bigger, which is the most important? And it is very subjective as to whether someone has sold out or not. Which brings us on to an example. Robert Van Winkle. Anyone who's from my generation will know who this is. Vanilla Ice. He recorded Ice Ice Baby, and he wrote it in 1983, released it in 1991. He signed to a major record label for $1.5 million on the spot. That was his first signing, the first money he made. He sampled Under Pressure by Queen and David Bowie, 0 permission, 0 credit, just sampled it, took it, used it, promoted it. And then in the end, I mean, when you research it, there's so many different things that have been said about it. Eminem said he didn't want to rap anymore after he heard this song. It's been featured in Glee, Alvin and the Chipmunks, and various other things. So really, in terms of understanding the whole challenge, the considerations, I think that the profit and the commercial side of it is a red herring, really. We're all allowed to make money. Earning a salary is making money. We have to make money to survive. And per se, just making money is not a problem. There's different scales and different attitudes towards that, but I think we have to agree that you need to earn money. I think in a way, if you try to do it in the right way, creativity again is not really the problem. It's kind of hard not to be original. With sampling, with framing, or the ability to copy can even be seen as a creative form. So I think in a way, if you put your mind to it, it's hard not to be original. But so really, this whole thing is rooted in the idea of values. But how do we know if we're sticking to our values? How do we know if we're on track or if we're going off track? I mean, actually, what are values? It's a word that's used a lot It's a concept that we generally understand, but what does it actually mean? So, there are various phrases that are used in business. Values, purpose, vision, mission, strategy. They all kind of sound like they mean the same thing. They all have a different purpose, a different meaning. And when you assemble them together, you end up with a pyramid. So values are the most aspirational part of that set, right through down to strategy, which are much more actionable. And you tend to try to build the whole stack. You'll find if you look through some of the companies that have been around for a very, very long time, like Disney, Coca-Cola, they have a really good, solid values and purpose. So it seems to make sense to have that set up well. But how do you set values? Well, this is a really interesting quote from someone. There's a company called Buffer, which is an app that allows you to schedule social media and push messages to different channels. They have a really progressive model. I mean, he states this here, I think, really well. Values are implicitly already present. They're not something you pick, they're something you already are. So in a way, the values choose you through your upbringing, through the things you hold dear. Your values are already there. It's just about how to explain them or how to extract them. So we use a three-step solution here. So identify, clarify, embody. But how do you identify your values? It really isn't as easy as it might seem. You can be heavily influenced by recent events. So maybe something happened to you yesterday that makes you think that honesty is one of your core values. Maybe something happened to you 2 weeks ago that makes you think something else. So it's quite a hard thing to identify, but luckily there are models out there, there are ways to do this. There's an exercise called the Mountains and Valleys exercise, where you essentially look at your whole life, and you pick the most memorable events of your life, the things that made you feel something, the things that impacted you, whether they're positive or negative. Analyse how you felt after those, and then from that you extract values, and then you look at that whole pattern across your life, and you look even deeper, and you try to find those kind of 5 to 10 things that really mean something to you, that impact your choices. This is me. Until you do it, you kind of don't realise how crazy up and down life is. I certainly wouldn't have expected that my ups and downs were so extreme throughout the last 10 years. But actually, once you do this exercise, it gives you a real clarity on what those experiences did to you and what they mean to you. So the second thing is to clarify. So once you've extracted the essence of the values, you need to check with people who know you. Make sure that those values are your values. The people who are really close to you, they'll tell you. If you've got it wrong, they'll tell you you've got it wrong. So you read, reread, keep checking, and just keep working it until you're happy. Put it into a format that means it's easy to remember. Put it into a format as if you're going to publish it, because then you can be happy to look at it every day and make sure that whenever you need guidance, you can refer back to it to push you forward. So again, these are mine that came out of the Mountains and Valleys exercise. I think for people that know me, that they would agree with those. It's quite easy to be more general, but these are the ones that I think really mean something to me. So the third stage is embodying. Once you've identified values and once you've figured out how to nicely state them, then you need to figure out when to use them. So when are they relevant? Is it relevant all the time? Well, yeah, actually. If you're going to go through this exercise and move to a values-based decision model where everything you do is based on values, then it's always important. It has to be at the root of decisions that you make. Reminding yourself of them every day helps. Maybe you don't need to. Some people do. Some people find that it's easy to stray from that core track that they've decided they want to go on. If you do that, you can kind of do the work in advance to decide which version of you. I mean, most people kind of get that in the past they've had different hats or different versions of themselves. So you choose which version is the best one and live that through. So really, the journey that I showed before, if I could step back, right back to being 18 or being early in my years, I wouldn't have come to values. Values would underpin all of those other decisions that I had made through life. And that's really the way to think about it. It isn't a stage, it isn't a thought. It's a thing that underpins everything that you do. So back to Robert Van Winkle. So we can look at this in a different way. What were his values? Did he sell out? I think as an example, most people of my generation would quote him as a sellout, but actually did he? We can only really assume what his values were. We don't know. No one knows him personally. So he was imaginative. At the time, he sampled rock. Everyone else was sampling funk and soul. So he was imaginative and he was creative. He looked to his brother's collection rather than his own. He created impact. the money that he made, some of the writing credits went to Death Row Records. Death Row Records was really big in the 90s. And it started the careers of Dr. Dre, Tupac, Snoop Dogg, and possibly it's arguable they wouldn't be where they are today if it wasn't for that. Successful. So it was the first hip-hop single to top the Billboard charts in the US. And that's quite a big thing. Given that hip-hop had been around for many years before that, it was the first one to top the singles. It was #1 across the world. It's credited as helping diversify hip-hop by introducing it to a mainstream audience. And if you look at the state of hip-hop today, and how close that is to pop, and how large the money is in that industry, you can see this was one of the stepping stones. He claims that the criticism he received over sampling created a discussion about sampling and changed the way that people used it. So what can we learn? So, very subjective. Depending on which of those angles you look at, the first angle where we looked at Vanilla Ice, terrible man. The second way of looking at him, pretty awesome. Like he's achieved quite a lot. The phrase sellout is used to manipulate opinion or express jealousy quite often, I think. It doesn't really mean too much when people use it. Reputation can be significantly marked. I mean, even now, I mean, how many years on are we? 26 years on, people would still quote him as a sellout, so it's significantly impacted his positioning. But also the disruption of that has created a positive change. And making mistakes. Maybe he did make a mistake, but is it okay that his career is kind of destroyed as a result of that? We all make mistakes. So sticking to values. So there's three key pieces of advice here. So stop. So one thing to do, just when it comes to a marginal decision, when it's hard to decide which way to go, just stop, think, and pause for a moment. Maybe for just an hour, or a minute, or a second. Sometimes maybe just put off the decision for a day or so if you need the thought. Collaborate. So surround yourself with people who share similar values. You naturally draw towards people with similar values anyway, whether that's at work or personally. But if you make a deliberate effort to do it, you can support each other and make sure that you're verbalising that to each other, sharing your values, making sure you keep each other on track. And listen. So just more directly, ask people for help. Create a culture, and this is more referencing like a business case, but create a culture where it's okay for people to call you out. If you're making decisions that don't really adhere to the values you've set for the business, then allow people to say, like, stop, but maybe let's think about this as a thing. So then we get into just more day-to-day advice, so things that are more actionable. So redefine success. This is quite a critical one. So business success is often measured on value, worth, profit. Really easy to understand numbers, and we tend to draw towards things that can be turned into numbers to measure whether something is a success or not. But really, if you define success based on values, and you're choosing values, then you're choosing success. Like the actual money side of it, you need the money to be able to keep going, but if that isn't your driving force, then you can choose to be successful, just changing the way you think of success. Grow slowly. This is a really important one. I've seen this in other companies going quite wrong. Where some companies will recruit, say, 100 people in one go. I think if you grow slowly, maybe it's 10% a year, 20% a year, you can make sure that culture is retained so that you stay true to the original ideas of the company. And stick it out through the hard times. So if things get bad, don't take the bad job. Don't take the job that will kind of sort you out for the next 3 months. Wait, take the job that's going to sort you out for the next 10 years. Never compromise on quality. It's a triangle in the creative industry. You've got these three kind of points, and in an ideal world, you deliver on quality, time, budget every single time. But things go wrong, things get disrupted. You normally have to compromise on one of those three. Never compromise on quality. Compromise on time, take longer. Compromise on budget, spend more. But if you compromise on quality, you'll remember it, and it will stick with you that it was the wrong decision. Structural priority for creative. This is something that we do at our company. And so we have the creative director at the top level. So most companies will have like an managing director, finance director. They tend to sit at the top part of an organisation chart. But you can also sit creative at the top. And if you've got a creative director there, they'll kind of disrupt meetings. They'll cause chaos. They'll make you rethink problems that you thought were kind of easy. But it's a good thing. It will keep a lot of the creative part and the values part of your business in check. And allow transparency, so create feedback loops. If you make decisions in secret, probably there's something wrong with that. If you make decisions and share them, or enable other people to be a part of those decisions, it's going to be quite hard to make, I don't know, a deceitful or a wrong decision if you allow that feedback. And you've got lots of people telling you, lots of people saying to you, hey, hang on a minute, but before you just get too embroiled in it and too deep into the decision. So that's generally helped by vanilla ice. Some help about how to stick to values and how to figure out what those values are that you want to stick to.